Welcome back to In Between Sundays with Marco. I'm glad you're here today. Before we get into the video, if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what your thoughts about what we're about to see. Full disclosure, I'm going in blind to this one. This is going to be an interesting one for me. Also, the link to my Patreon is below in the description. If you want to support me there, I would appreciate it. You'll get some exclusive perks. You can choose how much you want to give. There's a few options there. Same perks for each option right now. I'm really, really grateful for all your help. I just want to beef up the equipment that I have here, improve and double down on this as much as I possibly can. Again, thank you so much. For any way that you've supported, whether through Patreon, just here through YouTube, I really am grateful. I'm going in blind to the video today. I haven't seen this video. I've heard about it. It's been told to me. I haven't seen it before. I'll take out whatever cuss words are in there. I imagine there will be some. This is about an artist named Jelly Roll. I've never heard Jelly Roll's songs before. I've never heard his songs before. I know he's kind of like country, I guess, like rock and roll country, more modern stuff. If you're older, you might not know Jelly Roll. Like I said, I've never heard, I don't really listen to like country music that much, if at all. So I don't know about his music that much. I know that, you know, he's got some popular songs. I know some people, I know Christians that enjoy some of his stuff, and whatever it is, either way, I was told that he spoke about Christianity, spoke about the church in regards to his new album or something like that, and that it would be interesting to examine that. So let's take a look at it. Let's see what he says and go from there. If you support the Patreon, by the way, you will get priority in potential videos like this. I want to encourage people to send me videos, send me ideas, send me things to react to talk about, to examine in light of what God says, to help us follow Jesus each and every day, to know him, to love him more in between the Sundays. But if you support the Patreon, you will get priority as far as videos being considered to do a podcast on them or something like that. So once again, thank you so much for all the support. Let's get into the video. I'm going in blind. I'm a little nervous. Again, I'll edit out whatever cuss words are on here so you don't have to hear that if you don't want to hear that.
I'm very interested in your view on God and spirituality and faith.
Yeah, man. My daughter is just turned 15. Okay. Last year, she started going to this little church back in this little country road, a little bitty church. When I was 14, the summer of that summer was the last year that I ever attended a church. I got baptized that same summer and caught my first robbery case that same summer.
Wow.
What a summer.
So all these feelings are coming back up in me as she's like pounding me, because you know what people do when they find a church. You know, gotta come, you gotta come. It's like what they do, and I think that's cool. So I was like, I should go. So I go, because I'm a father, you know what I mean? You support your kid. When I show up, I'm like, it was the first time in a long time that I wasn't mad at the church. You know, because like there's just so much room for error and that whole belief system. I don't want to get too deep into that because I'll get in trouble, but it's just weird. And I was just in there like, and I grew up a Christian kid. I got a cross on my face, you know what I mean? But I was like, I started looking at it from the people, not the preacher. And I was like, why are they here? And that changed my perspective of the church that afternoon. I was like, man, these people's intention is pure, at least in this little building. They're coming in here trying to cleanse something. They're trying to be better people. They're trying to set an example for their children, core principles of life, moral compasses. Like, they're not in here to create. This is like truly a safe space for these people. Like, this is like, and it made me think about, why did I go to church when I was that age? What drew me to the church? And it was all my friends went. Why did I get baptized? And what led me to, and then of course I spent 10 years after that in jail reading nothing but religious material. I mean, I read about everything you can. I didn't get my GED till I was in my mid-20s in jail. I'm a completely uneducated man. If you had to ask me what grade I completed, I'd say like 7th, I think was the last grade I actually like graduated to the next grade. You know what I mean? So I'm talking to Bailey about all this stuff. And when we leave that church that next day, I'm like, yo, you won't believe this, kid, but I used to go to a little church like this, and I got baptized when I was your age, and I had a bunch of homies, and I went on to, could have went one of two ways in life, and I went the wild route, so, and she kind of didn't believe me, and I was like, no, I'm telling you, dude, it's like the same church. It was called Whitsett Chapel Baptist Church. It was on this little country road in Antioch, between Antioch and Donaldson, sat across from the lake. Finally, one day, I'd take her. I'm like, I bet the building's still there. Bro, I pulled up, the building hasn't changed at all. Wow. Like, I think they added a carport that I didn't put on the album cover. Like, literally a carport, you know, like for some sweet old lady that, like, it's a 100-person church. And when I left there, I had wrote probably 100 songs at that point towards my debut country album. I called my producer and I was like, I want to start from scratch on this album. And I had a song called Going to Church and a song called Hungover in a Church Pew that I wrote through all those songs. And I was like, what if we make that the first song and the last song and we tell a story? Book open, book close, and we tell the story of this album and we call it Going to Church. And he was like, what's the name of that church you went to? I was like, Whitsett Chapel. He said, we need to call it Whitsett Chapel and you need to write that album. And I wrote a concept album. Like I scrapped all these songs. Like my reconciliation came from like, I still think what the church is doing, to answer your question directly, I still think what they're doing is wrong, but I think that the spirit of which people go to these churches is more, and I try to judge things based on intent. And I never seen the intent like I did watching my daughter and them go to that church.
Huh. I'm going to keep on watching in a second, but just to comment on this right now, that is interesting. To view church, he says he thinks they're wrong about stuff. I don't know. I don't know him well enough to know what he's talking about. Maybe he thinks like moral issues. Maybe he thinks about like, I don't know, heaven and hell or something like that. Stuff that is not very palatable for a lot of people. I don't really know. Maybe he's not referring to that at all, but that's a very good exercise that even Christians should do, and a mental exercise, which is, why do I go to church? Do I go to church? People say this, I'm not going to go to church because it's filled with hypocrites, right? So the people who say that they're Christians, but then they do all these bad things. Just recently, I heard someone say, someone told me like, wow, I'm surprised that you go to church. And this Christian goes, and they said, I'm surprised because they've seen this Christian make mistakes and do things that Christians aren't supposed to do sometimes. And this Christian goes, well, that's why I go to church. I have problems. I have things I need to fix and work on in my life. That's why I'm there. You think I'm there because I'm perfect? People misunderstand this all the time. Well, I don't know what he disagrees with. Maybe what that church specifically represents, maybe it's like the Westboro Baptist Church or something like that. I would disagree with that too. But I love what he says about the people. Look at the intentions of the people. These are good people. Christians get this bad rap sometimes because of these caricatures regarding Christianity, but they are good people in this sense that they're trying to serve God with a sincere heart.
What do you think is wrong about the church?
You can put this in. I just think that they're, I think that you can't pander to people that to think that we're all stupid enough not to be free thinkers. Mm-hmm. And I hate that this like Jesus and the church is going to die. Again, Jesus is going to die all over again if they don't find a way to portray him the way he was historically known to be. Not the version of which y'all let Constantine and all these people come together and figure this out under the Constantine. I read the Constantine Sword book about how this all came together. It's like, when you look at that stuff, it's like, if you look at the history facts of Jesus, which I think favor Christianity in this weird way, when you look at those, that dude is not the dude y'all have turned him into. Like, y'all have Americanized Jesus and used him as a way of not only propaganda, but you've weaponized God. You have weaponized God. You know what I mean? It's like, that was the opposite of who Jesus was. The same people that you are like criticizing and going against are the only people that Jesus had a relationship with in the Bible. He turned water into wine for his mother at a wedding reception. If we judge that alone, regardless of how you feel about Jesus, if you believe in it or not, to the side, his mother comes up to him. So she knows he can do crazy, right? Because she walks up like, yo, I need a favor, right? Imagine this, right? And Jesus was like, and he calls her woman. He goes, what, woman? In the Bible. Shows me he's a little bit sassy.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? And she goes, in so many words, I need a party trick here.
Yeah.
Like, this is like a really whack party. Like,
she only talks to God when she needs a favor.
Yeah, she only talks to God when she needs a favor.
Yeah.
Right? She's like, yo, can you do something about this? He says it's not my time, which leads me to believe that she's probably seen him resurrect a squirrel or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? She knows he can do something. And she hits him with the please. And just like any other good son who loves his mom, turns water into wine. You're telling me this dude gives a about gay people? Like, you're telling me that's what his focus was in life at that era? Like, that's something he'd be concerned with in this era of life? This dude, first thing he did was a party favor.
Yeah.
And then if you look at his history, he did nothing but protect town whores, prostitutes, people in jail, Like the famous story of the throwing stones, let he who without sin cast his first stone. He was protecting a prostitute. Pharisees come into the temple at one point and they ask him about an adulterer, dude having an affair, right? Anyways, and he's like, he's like, so many words, he's like, hey man, what about this girl over here? She's cheating on her husband. He goes, around on your girl? Literally, that's what he says in the Jesus way. It's like, you ain't never cheated ever? Come on, dude, you're cheating on your girl too. Leave that girl alone. It's crazy. But then somebody like my wife's the first person I watch those kind of Christian women persecute. It's like, man, that's the opposite of what that dude was doing. So that's my problem with the church. It's like, even if we just go by the 4 books that y'all call the only 4 accounts of him, this dude ran around with 12 thugs. If he was here today, he'd be on Harley.
Okay. That was a very bro reading of the Bible. I don't know how there's a thing out there called bro science, where it's like people that don't really understand science or kind of have this bro version of it, where it's science according to their thoughts and their opinions and not real science. That was basically bro theology. That was such a bad and that was a bad interpretation, bad reading, bad rendering even of John 2 and John 8. And to say that the disciples were 12 thugs either there were a few of them were fishermen. What are we talking about? Again, there's a lot there that's just wrong. It's just wrong. And so it's not surprising to me that his conclusion would therefore be wrong coming out of that. That's all I'm saying. Again, his reading of John 2 is a little... It's like if Hollywood would have made a movie about John 2. The same thing with John chapter 8. Jesus is not saying, hey, you guys have never cheated on your women too, right? That's not what Jesus is saying at all. No, those men literally broke the law of Moses in the process of trying to get this woman executed for breaking the law of Moses. That's what Jesus is saying there. Jesus is not saying, hey, unless you've never sinned, you can't say anything about this. In fact, he told that woman, go and sin no more. He's trying to use this as some kind of a justification about his wife or something like that. I don't know who his wife is. I don't really understand that. Again, I don't know his wife, but that's not what John 8 says either with the woman that was caught in adultery. Jesus is not saying hey, you guys cheat on your spouses too. You're good to go. Let's not all get crazy. No, that's not even close to what the context was of that. Again, that was a lot of bro reading of the Bible. So it's not a surprise that his conclusions are wrong. Again, it is true that Jesus did spend time with prostitutes. He did spend time with people who are hated outcasts in society, tax collectors, people who were deeply, deeply, deeply hated. John chapter 4, the woman at the well, all of that. But you'll never find Jesus saying hey, this is the way to live. This is the thing to do. And we're all good to go. Don't worry about doing all these other things that the Bible teaches. Just be yourself. Just hang out. Just be. No, that's not what Jesus did at all. Again, John chapter 8, the passage that he is bringing up, Jesus told the woman, go and sin no more. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. Literally told her to do that. And he's giving the idea that you think Jesus will have any problem with all this stuff, all this sexual sin that's happening? What are you talking about? Of course he would have a problem with it. He did. He reaffirmed all these things as sin, and the opposite, of course, is holy.
If what y'all are saying is God, what I'm reading feels a little different than my prayer to God is yo, if you're who they say you are, is there a spot for us with you or no? Because these people are sure making me feel like we're not. You know what I mean?
You felt rejected by it.
Yeah, it's so it's talk to me, God. Are we cool?
Yeah.
You know what's up with me.
Yeah.
You know my heart, but also the Bible also says that there'll be plenty of people that he'll tell them, you think you know me, but you don't. And there'll be people that, you know what I mean? It's so I always joke that a lot of these pastors going to end up in hell, and I'm going to have a big old mansion with a smoking section up there. You know what I'm saying? But I'll be the one with an open bar. You know what I'm saying? I think God going to do something big for me.
If you had a talk with a pastor, he might be like, yo, you onto something, bro.
Yeah, a few of them.
They might be frustrated with the same things you're frustrated with.
Man, I'm telling you, I've had more pastors reach out since Wits at Chapel and just speak out and go, hey, man, you might not, some of these Christian people might be against your message right now, but I think more people are hearing about God through your music than people have heard about God in a long time. And he's like, and I think you're talking to people about God who otherwise would have never heard about him at all. So them hearing about him in any way is kind of...
Because they might feel immediately rejected, kind of like how you felt.
For sure. You just automatically feel like, yeah, I don't fit that mold for that particular thing, you know? And the problem I do have, as you say that, is that the people that are like, Jesus is the only way, I get that. Like, he's the way, the light. I understand the scripture, but like, you just can't take away my free thought here. Like, you just can't lead me to believe, like, Jesus is a piece of this puzzle.
See, there's a mixture here that is kind of hard to deal with, which is he is half right and half wrong. The part that he's right about is the look down on others, the uppity, I'm better than you Christians, or version of Christianity. That is wrong. That is horrible. Absolutely. And the idea that someone like him wouldn't be allowed, like, in a church, like he shows up on Sunday morning, he wants to come to church service. The idea that someone wouldn't allow him to do that is crazy too, of course. However, the idea that Jesus has no problem with these moral issues is so wrong too. That's also completely wrong. Jesus, who came to save us, who died because of the fact that we have done those things, and Jesus, who came to save us from those things. Acts chapter 2, verse number 40. Be saved from this perverse generation. Come out, right? That's what church means. Ecclesia, called out of the world. 2 Corinthians 6:17. Therefore, come out and be separate, says the Lord, right? All these things. Jesus came to save us so that we don't live in these kinds of things. And so to act like Jesus would have no problem with me just living that way and saying, this is who I am, Jesus, I'm sure you'll understand, I'll see you when I have my big mansion in heaven, is I'm also deluding myself there too. And I'm also doing what Hebrews 10:26 and 27 talk about. For if we sin willfully after we have received the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful expectation of judgment and fiery indignation, which will devour the adversaries. You notice that? This is willful sin that we're talking about, and we're deluding ourselves when we say that willful sin, not character flaws, not unaware stuff that we're still learning and growing about, but saying, I choose to do this, I want to do this, I would rather do this and do what God says. We're deluding ourselves when we say that Christ doesn't care about that. Of course he does care about that. All in all, though, fascinating video, and thank you for recommending it to me. Hope it was a blessing to you. I just want to help you follow Jesus in between the Sundays. Support the Patreon, subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let me know what you think about this. Is he right? Is he wrong? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. God bless you. I'll see you soon. Take care. Goodbye.